Welcome to the Humankindness at Work podcast, where you'll hear inspiring stories of people just like you making a difference in their corner of the world. You'll hear how human kindness is at work and how you can be a part of it. I'm Jennifer Clark. Ready to be inspired? Here we go. Is your media engagement doing any good? If you're a typical adult, you know how it goes. Boredom or addiction leads to endless scrolling, precious hours of your day are gone, and you have nothing to show for it except tired eyes and an anxious mind. But it's not just adults that struggle with this. Media consumption is growing year after year, and our kids are often navigating their digital lives alone. My guest today is changing that. Daniel Badi Rinaldi is a husband, father, and the founder and executive director of Shiny Gems, a media education organization helping students in grades 4 through 8 use media technology wisely, creatively, and with integrity. A professional media producer with credits at PBS Kids, NPR, and iHeart, Daniel runs Shiny Gems alongside his production company, New Fruit Media. Shiny Gems curriculum has reached classrooms across the U.S. and Canada, weaving virtues like responsibility, creativity, and generosity into the way young people engage with digital life. Daniel believes that making a difference in a young person's digital world requires very intentional and very human kindness. Welcome to the podcast, Daniel Badi Rinaldi.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Daniel didn't know it then, but as a child, seeds were being planted in his young life by his parents and grandparents that would eventually grow into Shiny Gems and its parent company, New Fruit Media.
You know, there are multiple origin stories to Shiny Gems, but I'll start at one of them. And it really starts with my childhood, essentially. I grew up in Colombia. My mom is Colombian, my dad Italian-American. And on my father's side, both of his parents, my paternal grandparents, worked for Disney, essentially.
Wow.
My father, Joe Rinaldi, was a storyboard artist. He got to work on many of the golden era movies: Cinderella, Peter Pan, Dumbo,
Wow.
Lady and the Tramp, right? All of those. And my grandmother did backgrounds, and she did inking. And was not credited, as many women were not credited during that time, and especially for more minor roles. So as a kid, I grew up seeing them as role models and wanting to be an artist myself. And I would watch Peter Pan and Cinderella 4 times in a row. I loved these movies so much, and other movies that were not Disney as well, like The Mask and so on. And obviously now as an adult and as a father, I'm like, where were my parents this whole time? Why weren't they telling me like, hey, maybe one time is enough? Right? But I don't blame them. I was the 4th child and the only boy
by then, right?
of the 4. So you can just imagine my parents had their hands full already. You know, essentially I was exposed to movies and TV shows very early on, and it was sort of my companion. And I started drawing a lot. Drawing was my first art form. And if you look at my very first drawings from that age, when I was like 4 or 5 years old, a very impressionable age, they almost all either directly or indirectly reflect the movies and shows that I was watching.
Wow.
One way or another. And so that in itself, that personal anecdote, which I think many parents could resonate with, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, right? And that's not what I'm trying to get at. What I'm trying to get at is how impressionable young minds are and how influenced we are by media and the media that surrounds us. So it brings us to question then, well, what kind of media are we exposed to, or how often, or in what formats, to what degree? What kind of messages are being sent through these various mediums? So that is one of the roots of the inspiration of Shiny Gems in my own personal upbringing and reflection. In parallel, this while I was growing up in Colombia. My mother was a facilitator of a virtues-based educational program. It was a Baha'i-inspired program. I can maybe elaborate further on that if necessary. But essentially, it was teaching virtues at the neighborhood level. And so my mother was teaching children, not just in our neighborhood, but in various neighborhoods throughout Cali, Colombia, where I grew up. Fast forward some years, I become one of her students as well. I start participating in these classes. Then I start getting trained on how to facilitate these classes, how to teach these classes to those younger than myself. And so this all started in high school. And so when I start my career full on out in media and start becoming an entrepreneur in media and doing audio post-production for documentaries, then producing documentaries, then getting into radio, producing albums. I was doing some journalism for Georgia Public Broadcasting, then the CBC in Canada, just kind of all over the place. Dabbling my hands in all forms of media. So just to summarize, in journalism, in documentaries, in podcasts, in radio and music, I started seeing some parallels in my professional world and then in my volunteer weekend work, right? Which was working with these virtues trainings, essentially. And I'm simplifying it. When I say virtues trainings, it's really much more. It's character development, it's community building, it's service oriented. Mm-hmm. So when I started connecting the dots, we started experimenting with some workshops, essentially, in these various programs, these Baha'i-inspired programs, community building programs. We did some media workshops with 11 to 14-year-olds. That is just such an impressionable age when whatever decisions one makes during that time period will greatly mark the rest of their lives. It will mark their identity. And so I saw for myself how important it was to not just dedicate myself and my career to my craft in becoming a media professional and a media technician, or producing the next best documentary or podcast, whatever it may be, and trying to get awards. And that's all wonderful, and that is still very much part of my career. But it didn't feel complete. And so I wanted to somehow, in parallel, raise up the next generation so that they can do it even better. And when I say better, not just from a production standpoint, but from what is the content, what is the heart of it, what is the spirit with which this various media are being produced.
Better media content. We all want more of that, don't we? But to Daniel, better content doesn't mean another 1,000 movie options for entertainment. It means something much more impactful, and it starts with the virtues that Shiny Gems teaches.
The word virtues can have sometimes multiple meanings or connotations, and some similar, some synonyms for it would be character traits, right? Qualities that we may have. Gifts of character is one term that I really love. And so what are some examples of these? We're looking at patience, generosity, love, humility, moderation, responsibility, perseverance. And there's one really important one that somebody should probably do a podcast just on this one. Oh yeah, kindness. That's what it is. So what does better content mean? To me, it means reflecting these beautiful traits that we have as human beings and that we're able to reflect. This is essentially what makes us human.
Yeah.
Right? And how can we see more of that in our media? And I know sometimes maybe a listener might be hearing this, or a viewer, And I think that might be a little cheesy. Like, what do you mean watching a show that's just all fluffy love and peace and right?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think it's quite that simplistic.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that we have a lot to explore as to what it means to implement these character traits in our medium and in our storytelling. Because just to give an example, I mean, suffering and pain and hardship are essential to the human experience. They will continue to be. Now, what the source of that pain and so on is coming from, it's complex. Sometimes it's from our own, human inflicted suffering, unfortunately, upon ourselves, upon others around us. Sometimes it's the natural world, showing its strength against us, and sometimes it's forces that are much bigger than that we can't really describe. And so that inherently, humanity already goes through hardship and so on. Why do we have to exacerbate it so much with sort of these elements that we often see in media, where there's an over sensationalized and over highlighted conflict, so to speak? Why not? What would it look like if more media was focused on the true resilience and the work of communities to bring about solution? What would it look like to have many more stories that show what true love is, right? Or the various forms of love, and not simplifying it to a very superficial sense of what love and physical attraction might be. So that's just all to right now, superficially, I think, to answer your question. And the truth is, I don't know what it looks like.
Yeah.
I've seen fragments. I've seen glimmerings of what it looks like. I'm not saying that none of that exists. It truly does. And there are amazing people out there doing beautiful things. All I want is more and more and more people to put effort into this kind of storytelling, pushing those boundaries, and not succumbing to the easy route, or what might just pay the bills right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Ask any teacher or parent, and they'll tell you, raising kids in this digital age is challenging. Shiny Gems comes alongside teachers and parents to help them make a difference in how kids interact with and create media.
Shiny Gems is still relatively new. We're still in one of our initial pilot phases, you could say. And our initial efforts are on curriculum development to deliver for schools. We're using media itself to teach media literacy and digital citizenship within this framework of virtues. So what that means is that a student, let's say somewhere in 4th and 5th or 6th grade or so, during their homeroom or during social studies, depending on where the teacher sees the best fit, they would do 30 minutes to an hour of a Shiny Gems module. So what would a module consist of? Well, each module is based on a virtue, such as patience, kindness, etc. They would watch a short video introducing what that virtue is. They would have some comprehension questions to make sure that they understood the basics of that virtue. And then they start looking at broader implications of how that virtue applies to media. So, for example, in the module of moderation, we see a short video of a character that says he's been online a lot, and he also loves eating cookies a lot. And so he says he has to also gauge for himself when is too much and to stop. There won't always be an adult around, especially when you're entering that age of like 11, 12, 13. There won't always be an adult around to tell you exactly when to stop or what to do, what not to do. You have to really start making those decisions for yourself, and you become much more responsible. So to then be able to moderate your own consumption of media, to decide how much is too much, and to be able to do something more productive as a result. Another example would be in the module of patience. There's a character in the little short video that really wants to watch a movie with his dad. And his dad just got home from work, and so he's like, come on, let's watch it. But his dad says, well, I gotta get, dinner cooking first. You have to wait until at least the pot is boiling, and then we can watch it together. So at first the character's sort of bored, and he's like, come on, I don't want to wait around. So instead of just waiting around and expressing his boredom, he decides to go and help his dad with the cooking. And so it speeds up the cooking a little bit more. They enjoy themselves. They have a bonding experience. And then they get to enjoy watching the movie together while the soup is on the stove, right? So it's these very simple but very practical ideas as to how do we apply these virtues in our lives in the context of media. And not always in the content that we're looking at, but in how and when we're deciding to even watch that show or play that video game, or when to use AI or not, or to what extent and what situations. These are all one of the many of thousands of decisions we have to make daily. And when we're in that adolescent age, we have to learn how to make them. And so who is helping us, who is guiding us to make those decisions? Well, we're making an effort to be an influence for these young students, so that they can make better decisions for themselves.
Daniel's desire isn't just that kids would be wiser in their media consumption, but that as kids learn to create media, they would do it within a framework of virtues, understanding the weight of responsibility they carry as our society's storytellers. That even before the pen hits the paper or fingers hit the keyboard, they'll be thinking of designing characters whose traits bring out the best in humanity. They'll tell stories of resilience, kindness, and service to community, virtues that call us to something higher. What are some of the risks for us if we don't invest in the better content that you're talking about? Media literacy, healthier content for kids. What are we risking?
Not seeing the nobility that we inherently have as human beings. None of us are perfect. Right. But by nobility, it means seeing the good in others. There's this beautiful quote that I'll paraphrase that says that if somebody has 10 bad traits, but one very good trait, just focus on that one good trait that they have. And if somebody has one, bad trait and 10 good traits, we'll focus on those 10 good traits. Because we all have imperfections. Yeah. Right? But actually, when we focus on the good traits that we have, they will naturally amplify.
That's exactly what I say. We will amplify what we focus on. And focusing on the good will amplify the good.
Agreed.
I wholeheartedly believe that. So let's flip that then. Flip that question. What kind of world can we create if kids grow up with this better content, feeling empowered, thoughtful, responsible in their relationship with media?
The kind of world that we can create as a result, that I envision and that I feel like I see the glimmerings. I'm very hopeful for the future, by the way. Despite some very dark times that we may go through, that we're maybe going through now and that we will continue to go through for some time, I'm very, very hopeful for what's actually to come and for what this next generation will bring. Because it's a society that can truly trust the person next to them. What does true trust and trustworthy mean? It comes from if we all, for example, make an effort to be honest and truthful, then naturally we will build trustworthiness. Because I can trust that others are making an effort to be honest and to tell the truth, just as I am making an effort to be honest and to tell the truth. Right? So there's this sense of trust that nobody's out there trying to get me, so to speak. There's there isn't this suspicion of, like, did they make that racist remark against me or prejudice remark? Or did I, or this and that? Like, are they trying to get the worst out of me? Are they trying to belittle me? And even when those things happen, I will make an effort to see the good in them.
Yeah.
Right? I will make the effort to overlook their faults because I know I have them too. And when I say I, am speaking like in the generality for all of us.
Yeah.
And it's all about effort. And it's about, there's this beautiful quote from the Baha'i writings that says, let each morn be better than its eve and each morrow richer than its yesterday. Right? There's no threshold. There's no end to how good we can be and what this looks like. So that's how I see it. It's a society where there's true love, where we can really love one another. Right? Where our love extends beyond ourselves and our family, but it really extends to our neighbors, to those around us, to other, children and young people in our lives, to make sure that communities are raising up the next generation. And it's not the sole responsibility of a singular family, where institutions and really like show love toward the communities and individuals they're serving in their jurisdictions, where we can trust our institutions almost blindly, because we know that there's a sincere sense of love and true leadership, which is true service, humble service, right? So there's so many elements I could get into that I feel like it's a rabbit hole, but I think that's what it looks like. And our media is a part of that. It's not the center of it.
Yeah.
But it's a part of it. It's essentially our storytelling mediums. If we go back thousands of years, as human beings, we've always told stories.
Yeah.
Stories will always be a part
yeah.
of the human experience. It's just right now, maybe we're talking about TikTok, maybe we're talking about Instagram or Snapchat or Netflix, whatever it might be. These are formats right now that some of us are hearing some stories, but that'll change in the next 5 to 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years. These things will change, but we'll never change this story.
I love Daniel's vision for what our societies could be, and I love that we can make a difference through our storytelling mediums. In fact, it's exactly what this podcast is all about. If you want to make a difference in kids' media creation and consumption, Daniel has some good suggestions for you.
So I'm a father of a 10-year-old, almost 11-year-old, and a father of a nearly 13-year-old. And from my own personal experience, and this is actually one of the modules that we've developed as well. As parents in the household, watch things together with your kids.
Yeah.
It's so simple. And we all, I think many of us might have shared values, but each family also has its own set of values, or what level of priority or hierarchy they might put these values in. And so you as a family, you decide what you're going to watch and watch it together. It might not be 100% of the time, but at least a good chunk. Because then you are, even if you end up watching something that is very inappropriate or whatever it might be, you're watching it in the safety of the nucleus of the family.
And you can talk about it.
You can talk
right?
about it, and so as a parent, you can ask questions about how that made them feel, about what they thought about that. If they were a writer on that show or that movie, or if they designed that video game, what would they have done differently?
That's a good question.
There's so to even, because it's so easy for us to think like, or especially as a young person, like that's just the way it is, and or this is the thing that everybody's talking about at school.
Yeah.
But to even just ask ourselves like, oh, what would I do differently? Because, well, it can be different. That's the reality.
Yeah.
And if you were a writer on that show, or if you were a director on it, it would be different. It would naturally it would be influenced by your values, your perception of life, your perception of the nobility or lack thereof of the human being. So what would you have done differently? Or if nothing, why not?
Yeah. That's really good.
And I think it's developing a healthy amount of criticism, but also to be careful to not become overly critical and suspicious about everything that we see. But it is healthy to essentially ask questions. I think that's the fundamental principle and skill, is to be able to ask questions. Because if we ask questions, then we become active agents. Yeah. And even though we can't control what others do, it will then influence our next decision. And if we then become media creators, let's say as a young person, well, because we asked that question when we were 12, well, now I know that it's possible to change that. So I might do things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. But if I totally accept it wholeheartedly and that's just the way it is, well, I'm gonna just repeat it.
That's a good thought. Not being a passive consumer. Right?
Exactly.
Which I think most of us kind of become that. And if you think about it, you say some of these, our children might become content creators or in the media. I feel like if people have a smartphone or any kind of technology, most people are creating something. Even if that just means I'm posting a picture of my lunch to social media, there is a lot more participation than we would probably realize. So
most definitely. And that's so important, Jennifer. What you've mentioned is that we're not promoting for all young people to now be quote unquote professional media creators, and that's their career. They're the next, directors. And but just like you said, even posting a picture on a family WhatsApp chat or text thread, they're already making a decision about what kind of picture they're going to put, what kind of text, what kind of emoji, how many hundreds of emojis they're going to put.
Oh my, yes.
How many videos, which GIF or GIF, however you pronounce it. All of these are tiny decisions, and they're very small, and many of them don't have very large implications, and that's actually good.
Yeah.
And that's another thing for us to consider as parents, is what big of a space is your child participating in? And so what this means is, are they already, stepping into the window of the world, and being exposed to the whole world, maybe prematurely, so to speak? And there are many people I'd use this analogy that when a child is growing up, we don't immediately let them just leave the door and, go to the corner store. We first hold their hands. We teach them how to cross the street, to look both ways. Eventually they can cross the streets on their own. Yeah. And eventually they can maybe start walking downtown on their own, or wherever it might be, the corner store, depending on your context. So it's these gradual steps. And so thinking about it that way as well with the digital world is how we can also better protect and prepare the young people in our lives, whether we're an educator, whether we're a parent.
I don't know about you, but this conversation has me thinking about changes I need to make in my own life to move from being a passive consumer of media to using media thoughtfully, creatively, and with integrity. I want to tell better stories, the kind that bring out the best in us, highlighting the gifts of character, as Daniel puts it. If you'd like to learn more about Shiny Gems, check out the link in the show notes. You can try out the pilot curriculum at no charge for a limited time to test it out before receiving full access to the modules. Just visit shinygems.com to get started. This episode is brought to you by my voiceover business. Telling stories with impact is one of my passions. So if you want the sound of human kindness on your next media project, head to jennifersvoice.com to hear samples and get in touch. Until next time, how will you consume and create media for good? Before you scroll, watch, comment, or post, think about the ways you can make a difference in your digital world and amplify the good. See you next time.